Guys, welcome back. Another episode of fly tying, Bellitti Outdoors. Fairly new to tying flies. I got into it because I absolutely obsessed with fly fishing. I'd love to tie my own flies. I think it's awesome to be able to tie your own flies and then catch a fish on them. It's kind of an achievement. I've tied a few different variations of flies, trying to make them kind of my own from trout patterns that have just worked for most of my life, and the color variations that basically all growing up trout just seem to love. It doesn't take too long, probably going to take us about 5-ish minutes, maybe a little longer, just because I'm taking my time trying to show you exactly what I'm doing, but generally pretty easy. So we've got a size 16, 14 to 18 is probably the sweet spot with this. 14's fine. Small waters I probably wouldn't really throw 14. I think smaller's better on the really small streams and stuff. I'd probably throw a 16 to an 18. Going down below that, I think it's an Attractor Nymph pattern, so we're going to come in here, just tie basically back to our thread, getting it solid, and we're going to trim that off. Sweet. Now, I like wrapping back to basically where my tail fibers, a little too close to the hook, and wrap back to where I want my tail fibers to essentially end, which is right at the bend of the hook. And I'm going to come back just a little bit. I think if you do this, it helps your tail fibers not slip as you're tightening them down. I come in, hold, tie in 2 to 3 wraps, and walk it back down. On the pheasant tail fibers, this is about probably 10 little pheasant tail hairs. And we'll walk it down to about where I want it. Now, wrap back up a tiny bit, and I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to trim these fibers. Come back up and cut these remaining fibers off. Now, next thing we're going to do is take some wire. I've got small copper wire. Doesn't have to be small. You can use medium, I think is fine too. Large is probably a bit aggressive for this size of a hook, but I'm going to take small wire, break me off a piece, and we are going to secure this down. I'm going to wrap this back to essentially where I've got my tail fibers. Now, wapsi dubbing. I'm going to use tan. This is damsel tan is the specific dubbing I'm using. Damsel tan. A tan variation I think is good. Brown. Olive also not so bad, but I like doing tan because I think the contrast between this and then the Peacock dubbing that we put, the Prism Peacock dubbing, just behind the hot spot really pops between the colors. So this is a good contrast. So this tan coloration, wrap it forward, a little messy, body looks great. Alright, I'm going to come in here, wrap forward with my copper wire. And then I've got fat fingers, so I found taking pliers, grabbing the wire, and then doing small turns. Fat fingers, lifesaver. Game changer, whatever you want to call it. Alright, I'm going to wrap this forward. I like making sure that I've got my bead seated how I want it to be, and then I'm going to take some Peacock Prism dubbing, not a big amount, small amount, build another dubbing noodle to wrap. And this one I'd like actually to make fairly thin, so I can take a few wraps. And this is just going to go right behind. That bead. Quick whip finish. Come back in. Cut the thread, and now you can come forward and clean anything up that you don't love or like. I like this pattern to be a little buggy, have some fibers sticking out. I think it looks better. After that, come back in with a little bit of resin. Bead, hit it with our light, and that's a finished nymph pattern right there. Doesn't take too long. Like I said, 5 to 10 minutes tying, walking through. You can crank these things out though if you got your hooks and everything ready to go. They do not take long at all. This pattern will catch all over southeast Missouri, southern Missouri. I've used it basically all of these big rivers. Works great. Small creeks, like I said, tie it smaller. Great pattern. One of my favorites to tie and fish with, and it's kind of a confidence pattern for me. Throwing this out there, I just feel really good, and like I'm gonna catch fish every time I'm using it. So one of my favorite patterns, like I said, Pheasant Tail works great on this. It's honestly more of just an Attractor nymph pattern. Good coloration, and I think it pops between those three colors. The contrast is pretty good, so I think especially in a shade you can kind of tell. Yeah, just generally a pretty great pattern. Try and turn that, pick it up off this. Tell that there. Little baby pattern. There it is. Hot spot Attractor nymph. Work amazing. 14 to 18 in the tie size. Give it a shot. One of my favorite patterns. Something. I think we're on. It's pretty trouty to me. Oh yeah, on the board. I'm so proud. That right there is wild rainbow on a hand-tied fly. Pink tungsten jig, Peacock curl. It's got a green-ish body, olive body. And then little tail. Awesome. Right. Oh, so pretty. Here you go, bro. Beautiful fish.